she herself had experienced racial slurs. A third student described her memory of training a puppy to help her connect to part of her psychology textbook about behavioral conditioning. A fourth student explained his connection between Plato's Republic and Marxist governments. Quote, Karl Marx and socialist and communist societies tried to use many of Plato's ideas in their writing and governments, but they all consistently failed, while democracy thrived and continues to spread today. End quote. So in general, we found that students were reading and they were connecting, but they were connecting kind of willy-nilly, I think, because we prompted them to do so. But they were reading. This notion that students don't read, quite frankly, was not completely true in our data source. In this longer paper, we have 3 case studies of students who I consider to be outliers from status quo. Let me just share with you one brief case study. And we've given this young woman a pseudonym, Angela Ivy. We agreed to not use their full names. Angela was taking 4 courses during the study: Italian, algebra, composition, and sociology. And she devoted some time to reading in each of them. But the reading activity that occupied most of her time during the 2 weeks involved the Bible, plus books and articles from the popular press about contemporary issues of Christian faith. Her reports of her reading experiences showed a young person on the one hand looking for confirmation of religious principles that she grew up with, but on the other hand, questioning how these principles fit into the new culture that she was immersed in at the university. And for those of you, I teach in what is called the Buckle of the Bible Belt. And so we have all sorts of students who are coming here, and they are meeting very, very different people for the first time in their lives. So it's kind of a mind-altering experience for them. The number of minutes Angela devoted to reading for her 4 courses is instructive in itself. Over the 2 weeks, she reported spending 325 minutes reading and studying for algebra, 215 minutes reading and studying vocabulary items for composition class. So reading for algebra beat out reading for composition. 175 minutes reading and studying Italian, and 35 minutes during the 2 weeks reading for sociology. So she just, quite frankly, didn't have time for sociology. Now, but compare these times with her reports from 3 other activities. She spent 345 minutes in the 2 weeks reading the Bible and books and articles dealing with her faith, texts that she chose to read for interest and personal benefit. She devoted 330 minutes to reading email messages, websites, at least one of which was related to her coursework, and Facebook entries. She spent 210 minutes reading articles in magazines and newspapers for personal interest, but at least 3 of these articles were about topics that frequently emerge in contemporary discussions of religion and faith: creationism versus intelligent design, homosexuality and tolerance, and the legalization of marijuana. Angela's journal opened with a long questioning entry on a book called Show Me God by Fred Hereen, a text that Angela said she read by choice. The main point of the text she wrote was concerning the law of cause and effect, that logic demands a cause for every effect, and that a world universe is an effect that demands a very great cause. Here's what she wrote. The sun, moon, and stars could not have come from nothing. That's irrational. Since every observable fact around us can be explained in terms of something else that caused it, but when the question is about the existence of the universe itself, there's nothing in the universe to explain it, no natural explanation. I understood where the author was coming from, but just because we haven't found a cause for a natural explanation of creation doesn't mean we should just throw up our hands and say God did it. So here's a person, questioning the tenets of her faith. Making specific text-to-self connections, Angela wrote that Show Me God gave me examples of other skeptical people who were not quite sure about what they believed, but realized they needed to deal with the questions they had and face the reality of God if God does exist. Here's what she wrote. Obviously, I want to believe. I've grown up in church, but I don't want to be putting my faith in a fable or a lie. She explained under the rubric of text-to-text connections that she had read several books concerning this topic. And she gave them titles. Out with Doubt, A Look at Evidence for Christianity. As a Matter of Fact, A Look at More Evidence for Christianity. These are both by a writer named Kyle Butt. And Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. She concluded the entry with a text-to-world connection. It seems to me that most of the world doesn't take this topic very seriously. A lot of people in today's society are apt to disprove God, but this text gives reasonings for his existence. I found that many people in the world, if they do claim to believe in God, only have a form of godliness but deny its power. They do what satisfies them but don't truly, sincerely consider what they believe. But I could be wrong. I don't know their hearts. Angela next briefly turned her attention to reading for her classes. On the second day of the journaling, she chose to write about a section of her sociology textbook entitled Aspects of Postmodernism. She summarized the main point this way. Our culture has changed a great deal in the past few decades. Well, no kidding. Having spent 15 minutes reading this 5-page section, Angela wrote, quote, "I fully agree with this text," end quote. She noted no questions came up while she read the text, and then she skipped a reading in a shaded section, and then she skipped the graphs. She says the point is made in the text. On day 3, she chose to write about her 80-minute experience of reading Cinderella, a story of sibling rivalry and edible conflicts by Bruno Bettelheim, a part of her assignment for one of her composition course. Angela clearly encountered difficulty with this piece. There are so many different points, she says, so many different point made that it's hard to say what the main point is. A quote, "Bettelheim wrote so many in-depth thoughts that it's hard to distinguish exactly what I agree or disagree with." She did, however, make a text-to-self connection, writing briefly about her own rivalry with her brother, and she concluded